Well, welcome back to the shop, guys, and because we haven't done enough videos on it yet, let's do some more work on my 2001 Beaver Patriot Thunder. The sun's setting in the western sky there, and I have a few things that I wanted to always do ever since I got this. So I've driven this on a few trips now, and I've had it for about a year and a half, and there's a few items in the driver's area that I think could be a little bit better and serve the driver, that's me, and could make my driving experience a little bit better. I just washed this thing because I'm going to be going on another trip, but she sure did clean up nicely. But it does seem like everybody enjoys when I share my projects that I'm doing on my RV, and I thought you guys would enjoy this too and give some people some ideas if they want to do it. Like I said, they're all going to be in the front area for the driver mostly. Now, if I can be candid, one of my favorite things about being an RV technician is that there's really no manuals for anything that you're doing. You get to think outside the box and try different things just to see if it works. Now, one of my biggest problems with the layout of the driver's compartment or the cab area for the driver is that even though I have these cup holders on each side, they're kind of rinky-dink cup holders just for soda cans. And if you followed me long enough, you know that I like to drink big thirst busters like this, or these Polar Pops. And yeah, it kind of fits, but it's a little bit top heavy, and I don't know if you can see, I don't have a lot of leg space right there, and this is a styrofoam cup, and this is a guillotine that wants to cut it in half. And while I could use this one over here, I also don't find this one any better. In fact, I think it's a little bit more of a diving board. Now, the previous owner, or one of the previous owners, added this cup holder for the passenger, which works perfectly, and even this one on top, which is not great for this, but it does hold it. So I want a better cup holder, which may not be the best title for a thumbnail on an RV, but that's what I'm doing. Now, as a driver, I also like to have a cubby hole for my phone, chapstick, and other items. And while I have these things over here, they're kind of not very useful for holding anything that I need right at hand. And this little flip box right there, again, not that useful when it's that far away from the driver. I do have this center console right here, and a lot of modern RVs do have a drawer right here, but this is not a drawer. This is a door. I mean, I guess technically it is a drawer because this does pull out right there. But what originally was here was a DVD drive for the map for the radio, because the radio here used to have a screen that would come out and come up. And so that drawer down there had a DVD drive, had a disc that you had to load in order to do your navigation. I don't have that drive there anymore. So my original plan was to just take this door off, take the hinges off, drill a couple holes through this tab right there, and then turn this whole thing into a drawer that you could open and close. Then I'd have to come up with a latch that holds it open, because obviously a cup holder driving down the road is no good if it's just going to slam forward, even though a lot of manufacturers on modern RVs haven't figured that out yet either. But I'm going to try to figure it out. But the last time I drove this, I got to thinking that maybe if somehow I could latch this pull-out drawer to the door itself, that will keep the drawer from sliding forward. And then when it's closed up, it'll still look factory, and I haven't effectively changed anything or damaged anything. Now, even though I made the bold statement a year ago that there's no such thing as a classic RV that you have to keep original, like you might on a classic car, I don't ever want to do upgrades or modifications on an RV, especially as beautiful as this one, that I might regret or might not look good in a few years. And then it's still pretty original. I'm going to try to do two things at once, but that's not really the case because there's about 4 other things I want to do. And since I'm considering doing that, let me get this out of the way. My Garmin map. The slide out switch is right there. It's really not a great location for this because this is the natural shelf to put stuff in. And it's always in the way, especially if you saw how my Garmin was there. So I don't like the slide out switch being right there. I think on newer models, they moved it just to the side right there. So I do want to relocate the slide out switch right there. So when I move this, I'm going to have holes right there that I don't want to see. But if you notice, I do have my Garmin map, and my phone and charger would all be right there. So I want to fill those holes with something useful, and I think a USB charge point or a 12-volt outlet will work out pretty well for me too. And then the last thing is right here, you'll notice there used to be a 12-volt outlet right there. I don't know if the previous owner didn't like that outlet right there, but they did mount a 12-volt outlet right over here, which is not the greatest location. So what I've been doing is I have this 12-volt plug-in that I can then plug in down there, and now I can get stuff on the dash. But I don't like the look of that. This coach is too beautiful to have things draped around. So I do want to fix my 12-volt outlet right there, add some sort of charge center right there so I can have something for my phone, the Garmin, or even a dash camera if I want to put one there. And I don't really want to drill any more holes into the dash if I can help it. This fabric does tend to shrink up over time, and we don't need more holes in this dash than it's already there. So I think that's everything. And I think I came up with a solution for every problem I had. And I don't think this is going to take me too long. So let me show you what I came up with. Because even though I have the skills to turn this into a cup holder somehow, or take out this and make a different drawer with built-in cup holders on it, it's always easier for me to adapt an already existing product if we can. So I went on the internet and I found a center console organizer with locking adjustable cup holders, and it's already molded to do everything I need. It has a little cubby right there for chapsticks, receipts, and other things that you end up having in your pocket driving down the road on a trip. I don't know if you guys can see, there's 2 holes right there where we'll just screw right down. So if I can just figure out a way to latch that to that drawer, then I'll have a pull-out center console doing everything I wanted with a minimal amount of effort. But first things first, this drawer is a little bit too short. I close it, it doesn't close all the way because way back there is a cross member for the rails. Now I could cut that to make it fit, but I'd be cutting off most of it. So I think if I want to modify anything, it's going to be a plastic little console. And I think there's just enough room that I can make it work by cutting off this back flap. And the other thing I need to modify, it's hard to see the ends of these screw recesses are not even with the side of this, because this would have been meant for the floor, the little hump on the floor in between the driver and passenger seat. So I just need to even up the bottom too so that it's even with those screw holes. So I'm kind of a firm believer in not reinventing the wheel if you don't need to. I've done no measurement whatsoever. Even when I ordered this, I didn't know if it was going to be too tall to fit. So what you guys are seeing is what my brain is thinking. So I think we just need to get a marker. So I always carry these in my pocket. And then all I'm going to do is use some tin snips, and we'll cut that right along the line right there. Just connect the lines on this side, and oh yeah, nice straight. Try to make it look good. We'll see how it turns out. This is an event. Yeah, it's actually not too bad. Alright, cut off that, and then we'll cut off that. Even though I'm going to be cutting off all of this still, but ooh, I think that works out perfectly. I think it's staying near exactly where it needed to be. And remember, the crossbar was hitting here, so now I have to notch out this back piece. I think there's just enough space back here between here and there that it will be good enough, I hope. So all I really have to do is try to make this look acceptable. I'm gonna go right about at the peak of there, and right about there. So I think that's about right. I'm just going to be cutting off all of this over here. Now the good news is the back of this won't be seen when the drawer's open. Alright, so just have to finish cutting that off. And yes, I did forget to say, these are just aviation tin snips. Nothing special whatsoever. In fact, these are probably close to 16 years old. You guys have seen them in a lot of videos. They're not very sharp either. Okay. I think that's all my modifications. Let's see how it fits. Alright, so that's as far forward as I can get it there. Alright, we're still hitting just a little bit. Not hitting on this side, but on this side just a little bit. Even though it probably would close, I'd feel better if it looked good. Let me just modify that cut a little bit and then we'll put it back on. Alright, cut off a little bit more, trimmed it off, trimmed a little bit right here. And yes, I could use a Dremel or a rotary tool, but I don't trust myself with those. Alright, with a little bit of modification, I think that's going to work. But of course you need to make it look good still because this is a beautiful coach. So I'll just use some 600 grit sandpaper and kind of make it look a little bit nicer on the sides. Not that I ever expect anybody to take this off and judge me for my cuts they can't see, but I'll judge me. I got it cleaned up and I think we're pretty good. All I have to do is screw this down and basically the job's done. I didn't use any tape measures or anything, but if there's one thing I do know is that the sides of these will become catch-alls for things too. And also, I don't know if you guys can see, I have some holes right there from the DVD drive where it was mounted before. And I want this to look pretty good. So what I could do, and what every other manufacturer would do, is just get some gray felt and just put it down there to make it look nice. But I think gray compartment felt is not something that should ever be on a beautiful Highline diesel pusher like this, let alone modern manufacturers are getting away with it. And I think that's inexcusable that they're doing that, especially when it's so easy to use this product right here. It's just woven material. This is a placemat. It's basically just a screen material. You can see through it, and the stuff's pretty inexpensive. It has fiber cords in it, just like a normal screen would have, and it's vinyl wrapped. And I think it'll dress it up just a little bit. Now, I'm not going to go through all the hassle of gluing this down because I don't think it's going to need to be glued down when it's screwed down. So let me just go ahead and cut this to fit, and then we'll be done. So I think we solved some issues. So that's going to look just like that right there. Have cubby spaces on both sides, and I think it'll look pretty good. The last thing I have to do is figure out how to keep it from sliding back in and attaching it to the door easily, and driving down the road if I need to, and so that it can unlatch really easily, because when I step out of the seat right there, my foot's going to want to go right here, and I want to be able to get that out of the way really easily. Now, I could go with the RV standard stuff, like these Southco plastic latches. If you have an RV, you know how unreliable and often you replace these. And these are like $12 a piece now. Now, my RV, this Beaver, has a lot of these brass latches with the spring-loaded ball bearings on them. And these wear out too, and they don't always latch very well. Luckily, mine have done pretty well over time, but they're using them on most of the latches in here. But again, I want something simple, easy, and lining up all those latches, there's not a lot of margin for error. And then even with these, when you go to close them, you kind of have to jiggle them a little bit to make sure that they line up. And I don't want to do that driving down the road. And because I get exposed to a lot of different RVs and a lot of different ideas, so I decided to steal an idea from Newmar's playbook. On a lot of their ceiling packages, they use magnetic latches to hold this great big heavy thing up in the air. If you pull on them hard enough, it'll hinge down and you get access to the air filters. So I think I'm going to go with magnets. And I found these rare earth magnets right here. I don't know who that manufacturer is, but it's just 2 pieces. And it takes quite a bit of force for me to pull those apart. And I think if I have 2 of them, that'll be more than enough to keep the door mounted to the tray here, and I can pull on it really easily. So let me get this mocked up. If you notice, I don't have a lot of space right here, but I have more than enough space for these latches. So my plan is something simple as to put these on the bottom side right here, and this piece right there, and then when it closes, it's completely out of the way. It's not magnetic right here, so it won't be attracting anything if I were to drop it. And I think this is going to be the only part that takes any real planning. So all I'm going to do is make a mark right about there because I don't want the latch to be over the hinge, because this is steel and it will want to stick to that, and I don't need that at all. And I think if I just put the latch underneath right here and right there, I think 2 of them will do, but if not, I'll put a 3rd one in the middle. And it definitely shouldn't be that big of a deal, because I think this was a 5-piece that it came with, so I have a lot of extra ones if I need it. And it does come with the screw and hardwares for it too. So let me get those installed. And the news just keeps getting better. These are die cut, double-sided tape stickers. So you can just stick them on the back, peel off that. There's my mark right there. Just put it even. There's one. All right. And there's 2. Now hopefully all I should have to do is get the strike plates right here. Put the die cut double-sided tape on it. On the bottom of here. Have that out and pull that. I think that's pretty much going to work. When I pull this down, hopefully. Look at that. They're on there, so I know exactly where they go, and they clear everything. So, I think I'm going to like this. All right, with it centered, I just have to make sure the screws I'm going to use aren't going to go through. It doesn't look like they're going to. I could pre-drill, but this is plywood back here, so it should be okay. Right, 1. Okay, so here we go. Proof of concept. Open that up, pull it out, flip that back up, and look at that. Doesn't rattle down, holds it in place, and more importantly, it holds my cup. I can keys and other tchotchkes like cable adapters. So that works. And I'm really pleased with the way it turned out. I think it looks pretty good. Yeah, I mean, I know this looks like somebody just added a plastic cup holder to a dash, but when it's all closed up, it looks factory still. Like it didn't affect any change. This was not a very useful drawer to begin with, and now it's quite useful for me driving down the road. These aren't sticking out, and I'm not hitting my knees on them. And if we can be honest, this is a fiberglass dash with a double-stitched cover on it. Most modern dashes on most modern RVs are all plastic and they squeak and crack anyway, so I still don't see too many modern RVs with a useful center console anyway. So this, I think, is going to work out really well for me. But I do have a confession to make. Remember how I said I like to think creatively sometimes, and being an RV technician allows me to do that? Well, my idea didn't completely work out. And I think it's important to come clean to you guys what I had to do, but it's not that big of a deal. So these magnetic latches that I used are what I wanted them to do, and they are breakaways, so if I do step on that, it will just pop down really easily. There's no latches I have to worry about. The only real downside to magnets, I guess, is that they don't have a lot of friction to them, and so it held it just fine, but this would still just slide back out of the way. But now if you look at it, I'm pushing with all my might, and I can't move it to slide back, but if I just pop down, very, very simple. Now first, because I don't know if you can see, there's a pretty good angle right here. It wasn't latching very well on just the one plate, and so I just doubled up the plate to extend that out, engage the magnet a lot better. But it still would slide back pretty easily. It was a concern I had as I was building it, and I'm sure you guys had that concern too. But that's why we get to think creatively. But if I just slide you guys underneath, you'll see my two shames. One, my first location where I put these magnets didn't work out. So I did pull them back just a little bit just because I didn't want to see them. Where they were located right here. Remember, you could see them a little bit. I didn't like that. but two, there's a screw right there and a screw right there. So when I lift this up right there and I push back, those screw heads, they stick down just far enough to engage the lip of here. I think it's kind of clever. I'm not a huge fan of making transformers, but this took me all of maybe an hour's worth of labor, and I was filming this all too. So at the end of the day, I think it saved me a lot of time compared to making a drawer and then finding a way to latch the drawer without causing issues too. And this is very reversible. If I would have made this a drawer that pulled out, if I were to stand up and brush against it like that, I could break everything. And the drawer itself would have just been a little bit taller, and then I just would have had holes cut into it for cup holders, and it wouldn't have been adjustable like these are. I'm really pleased that ultimately that the concept pretty much worked for me. And if I were to step up and accidentally step right there, it breaks away and goes away very easily. But I think I have time to do 2 more things today, maybe 3 more things today. Let's see if we can't do them real fast. Of course, to do what I need to do next, I have to take this off anyways. And by the way, to take these off, you just lift off on those tabs over there, right there, and you're gonna slide the whole thing out. Very easy. And now when I flip it over, you should be able to see what I was talking about. Those screw heads are just sticking out just a little bit. They don't engage anything other than right behind that lip right there and right there. So very easy to get to this heat exchanger for my Aqua Hot if I need to still. And get to the wiring behind the dash there, and even the blower motor, which is nice. Alright, so if you guys remember, I wanted to relocate my slide out switch. So let me get the Garmin mount out of the way. And while I'm at it, I also want to do something about the top of this. Obviously, this is a natural place to set things, you know, like keys, adapters, and more keys, anything else that's in your pocket. And so it's got beat up quite a bit. I know I could take this all off, sand it, and refinish it because it is real wood, but I'd prefer not to do that, so I'll try to figure out something to do on that too. Like I said, if I remember correctly, Beaver did end up moving the slide out switch anyways. It's not the greatest location for it, and it's just going to be 3 wires. It's pretty simple. Slide out switch, momentary off, momentary. We'll just want to relocate it from there over to here. No, there's no direction on the switch itself, so I don't really have to care about any of the wires other than the middle one, which is going to be marked. Because all the switch is doing is switching either this one to that or this one to that. This is the common that we need to worry about. I'm going to risk it all by trying to take the switch out of the plate here, just by pushing on the tabs here, pushing it through. I say risking everything because it's a 22-year-old switch, and those plastic tabs tend to want to break even. So now with this, I can lay out where I want it to be over here. Probably going to be right about there. I'll measure it out, and then I'll just mark where the switch is going to go. For all the woodworkers out there, I have good news. This is wood veneer cabinet grade plywood. If I look back over here, you can see right where the holes cut out for that vent, the layers in that plywood. So I don't have to worry about being too high and cracking the wood. So I'm just going to probably go about 1 inch or so down from the top, and I think it'll look better centered on the panel itself and not using the end grain here of the face of that cabinet over there. So I can hang this and get that crooked. Make sure it doesn't get crooked, because I know you guys don't like it when it's crooked. Alright, now all I have to do is pretty much trace out where the switch goes. Alright, so I just have a 5/8 spade bit on here. It needs to be a little bit taller than this on the top, so those plastic tabs can actually extend out and lock into place. And then of course, because I have it, I'll just be using my oscillating tool to even up the hole right there. But definitely, if it were me and I didn't have that with me, I would just be using a utility knife and hitting it with a hammer to even it up. Oof. Right, and then we just put the other two, just like that, and then I guess we try right in the slide. Out. In. Put this back in. Alright, that's a little bit better. Looks pretty good. Now hopefully nobody should have a hard time finding that, and it won't be hidden behind here. But remember why we were doing this anyways. I wanted to mount a USB port right there. Alright, so sometimes to go forward you have to go backwards. I spent like the last few hours maybe tracing out all the electrical that was added to the dash, and I think I got it figured out and cleaned up. Unfortunately, there was a lot of extra wires and splices that I didn't need anymore. So these last two wires right there are the ones going to the 12-volt outlet over there. And then right down here, these two wires are the factory 12-volt wires that were supposed to go to this 12-volt outlet right there. Pay no attention to that one. That one's not being used. That's just instrument lights. The back lights for the gauges and the switches up here. Yeet. So let's go ahead and put this back together now. But okay, I have new wiring right here. This should be about 10 or 12 gauge wire. So I'm gonna keep this old outlet right there because I think it's doing just fine. I'll just rewire the harness so that it's long enough. And we're just gonna daisy chain it. So we're gonna go from here to down to these connections right there. All on the same 12-volt circuit. We shouldn't overpower this thing. It's 12 gauge, it's wired up to it, and it has a 30 amp breaker to it, so we have all sorts of power. So on the 12-volt outlet side, this is what I'm going to go with. This is the marine style one. I'm not a huge fan of it, just because it has a lock nut on there. I'm going to have to back off, but this is going to fit in perfectly right there, which works out really well because my Garmin navigation, this isn't just a 12-volt plug on it, it's a smart plug, and if it doesn't have this plug on it, it doesn't have some of the features that the Garmin might normally have. I think traffic updates, and I don't remember, it was some subscription service, so I got to have it as a 12-volt outlet down there. Luckily, the hole's the perfect size. That's why I had to take the nut off, so I can then put it on now. I don't know if you guys appreciate how thick all the cabinetry wood is in this thing. I told you they built them really well. Like I said, he wasn't afraid of extra splices when they did all this. That's a positive lead, and that's going to be non-insulated, so that would have shorted out against anything. So this is what they should look like right there. Got this USB charger right here. It's, I don't know, some no name. There's the one I found online. It's got this cool little flip door on it. The only thing that concerns me a little bit is that this green is supposed to light up, but I couldn't find one that wasn't lighted, but I wanted one that was just the right size. Some of the other ones were a lot bigger bases, and I didn't want to put a huge base on right there. But it only has that connection right through there. And I think that will just barely cover everything that I want to cover. And it'll look pretty good. And honestly, with the green lights, it'll be easy to find at night. I know some of you are probably asking, does it have fast charge to it? It says it does have fast charging, over voltage, over current, over charge protection, and reverse polarity. So all I really need to do is take that harness that was going to that 12-volt outlet in the dash. I'll run it down here. Doing really well. I could theoretically use some Wago lever lock connectors right here. My problem with these is not that they're bad, it's that they don't hold on to these tiny little wires exceptionally well. So what I'm going to use instead are going to be what I call bell nuts, but these are just going to be, they call them closed-end connectors. I find these pretty good for putting 2 or 3 wires together at the same time. These ends are already soldered. I don't like to crimp to soldered ends. What to do is cut the soldered ends off. Got my strippers. Because we're putting a lot of them together, going a little bit longer with the stripping's a little bit nicer. Don't need spade connectors on this. Now, I've already mapped out this circuit, so I know that black is ground and red is positive, but don't ever trust the wire colors on any of this thing. What we're going to do now is twist those together. Some people call them speed nuts. Let's do them good pair of crimpers, and I'm going to crimp it together. There's one. Alright, let's see. Hey, I got some green lights. You guys see the green lights? Let's see if I like that. Now I just have to feed these back in. Okay, I think that's going to look pretty good. Alright, so one last things I need to do is run a harness to my 12 volt outlet right there. Not that I really need it there, but there's a hole in the dash and I might as well make it useful. So I'm just going to run it through there, under the dash, over to this hole. And I find it just as easy to put the two of them together and use a yellow butt connector for one connector. You just need to make sure the insulated section is wide enough to fit two wires in it. Just like that. Alright, we'll do the ground the same way. Alright, and I got that hooked up. Again, ground on the outside, power on the inside. Now, I personally have a bad habit of securing wiring before I test everything out. So what I'm going to do is test this out first. And I'll plug this guy in down there. Hey, we got power there. Oh, look at that. We got power there. And that means I should be able to put that there. I got power there. We got power again. So all of the things I wanted to do as power is done. I just need to clean up my mess a little bit. So let me just clean up my mess underneath here so it's not so ugly. All right, I think I got it all tied up out of the way. Okay, here's, hey, look at that. It did clear. It closes. We got power there. Got power hooked up to there, secured out of the way, and of course 12 volt outlet right there. So driving down the road, I have power there for whatever I need. A USB adapter if I wanted to. And charge up a phone or something else. And then I still have my Garmin map as a backup in case my phone is lying to me. And I still have this, which I can use, again, for a backup camera on the dash there. Or, of course, it's going to be hard to show you with me holding my phone. And I put my phone in my phone charger right, my phone holder right there. I'll be able to charge the phone driving down the road. Or, of course, if I have a passenger, they can plug in right there and put it on the dash. But speaking of that, this ledge is still kind of damaged. And chances are pretty good somebody's going to put stuff there because it's a good countertop to do that on. So I have one more idea because we haven't done enough on the dash yet. I have extra material. Just cut that out. And okay, I just have to cut it to length that I want it to be. I think I'm pretty pleased with that. Looks a little bit better than nothing. I would have extended it that way, but that's just not going to stay on there. It's going to just keep falling off and driving me insane. But I think this is about as perfect as it gets for what I want. All right, so I think I'm really pleased with what I've gotten accomplished so far. I feel much safer as a driver. If I need to plug in something right there, I can plug it in. Probably won't need this anymore. It kind of looks gross anyways. But if I wanted to, I could. I could put it over here on the window with the suction cup. And I have really good access to my map and my phone holder. I can charge it off my charge point up there. And it's going to be very easy to see at night. But most importantly, I don't have to have these cup holders open anymore. Which is nice too, because the AC would blow straight onto like a warm cup, or the heat would blow onto a cold cup. Not to mention the amount of room that I don't have right here with my knee. This whole setup that we started from the beginning, I feel like this is going to be pretty good as a driver. Very safe. And if you are asking, that's just a way to hold my phone. Have a pop socket on the back of my phone holder, and it would just go right there. And of course I went a little off center so I could still see the speedometer okay. But now I don't really need that there because I have my phone holder with a charger. But I do have that option still. if I'm trying to get by here and that's in the way, I can pop that down with my foot, push that back. I don't have to worry about breaking it. I am still extremely pleased with my basement compartment lights. These are working fantastic for me. And this has been on all day as I've been working, and all night as I was working. And we're still at 56%. And I just switched over the solar to charge this one up after that one's fully charged. So even as such, it still could run another 15 hours. And yes, I will be putting links to everything in the description. So if you guys have any questions about what I'm using, that's where you guys should be able to find them. I also think you'll be hard pressed to tell me this isn't easier than making a drawer. After taking this on a few trips now, there's a few after having. But one of my biggest problems with this. But that's where I decided. So I decided to steal an idea from Newmar's playbook. Or of course I could. Or if I didn't want to use that gray stuff, I could always use the factory's favorite ozite material as a headliner. But I mean, this is 2023. Only trash companies are going to use ozite material to make a Highline luxury RV look good, especially inside cabinetry. So I decided to steal a plate. So I decided to steal